moving on and continuing on to Ferrari and McLaren, seeing as we kind of mentioned them before and we've talked about Leclerc. Now, It was an immense drive from Charles Leclerc to pull it back after he was essentially at the back of the grid after lap 1. He had to pit again for a new wing. He did that to himself and essentially took Gasly out of the race, but sort of made up for it with this drive. He put himself back into P7, basically, which is where he qualified. Sainz was also a very steady pair of hands and put in a very good performance. And we can compare that to McLaren, as you mentioned earlier. Norris was very strong out ahead, but I was a little bit disappointed that neither he nor the team appeared all that interested in really pushing to hold on to P3 because it felt like they let Perez go by. Door was wide open, no real attempt to defend. Maybe they were just trying to run their own race and ensure that they scored better than Ferrari rather than trying to put themselves in a risky position to hold on to a podium. If that's the case, I can't help but be a little bit disappointed because McLaren has got on the podium twice already this season. Fight for more.
Yeah.
Fight the Red Bulls. Why not? This sort of, we should play it safe and hold on to points against Ferrari. I do see the logic behind it, but I'm there going, no, get in his way. Like, hold on to P3, make a statement. And it just didn't really happen. And I was a bit disappointed by that. Daniel Ricciardo, the last of the four drivers in the spotlight here, just very disappointing again. I feel like if this were any other driver in any other team, I'd be raking him over the coals by now. So I feel like I've kind of got to do it for Daniel Ricciardo as much as it hurts me. Just leaving Lando high and dry, like not giving the team any real strategy options. He needs to at least finish in the points. I can understand him struggling in the lower positions, but not even finishing in the points is very frustrating. He pitted on lap 24, I think it was, or maybe later on. But he was supposed to pit to overtake Raikkonen, and when he came out of his stop, he was P15, 2 places behind Raikkonen. So whatever went on with outlap and inlap in the period of time before just didn't have the pace. He did finally get past Ocon and Giovinazzi to end up in P13. I think he finished the race, but just big questions as to what's going on. How can you end up number 2 on the timing sheets in one of the FP sessions and then be that slow and just not even capable of passing an Alfa Romeo? At one point, he was behind Russell, and I was like, sorry, Russell, I want you to do well, but come on, Ricciardo, get past him. It's a Williams. Like, for goodness sake, It's a Williams. Get past him. I think he had some kind of power issue or something, which wasn't really his fault, but it still took him too long, in my opinion, and very frustrating. So it's advantage Ferrari this week after we spoke last week for the French Grand Prix about how, it's Ferrari slipping away, they're not developing their car. Ferrari seriously came back this weekend, and Daniel Ricciardo could be that Achilles heel for McLaren.
Yeah, I can completely agree. I really enjoyed those first couple of laps. You mentioned how as soon as Perez got past Lando, McLaren just kind of settled for P4 because they weren't really going to fight for those top 4 positions. But actually, the first lap or two, or the first 3 laps where Lando was holding up Perez, it was really good fun to watch. That Red Bull undoubtedly looked quick. Yeah, the Red Bull undoubtedly looked quicker. Perez in that Red Bull looked rapid. He looked really strong, which is great to see for the sport. Really good for Red Bull, and played a massive hand in their strategy this week again. We'll talk about that later on. But Lando defending from that Red Bull looked amazing, and Lando can race. He's a really good racing driver. He's got great attacking skills, great defending skills, but unfortunately just didn't have the momentum that Red Bull did this weekend to keep Perez behind him. But as soon as Perez did overtake him, like you said, McLaren very quickly settled. And that's not what I want to see. Like you said, at this track before, Lando last year received a podium. So that should be that should be momentum, that should be drive, that should be passion to try and score a podium again, because you've achieved it before. It's already scored a couple of podiums this year, but McLaren just kind of settled. They just took the foot off the gas just to bring home the decent points instead of risking it for maybe a couple more. There's a big difference. 12 points of P4 and 15 points of P3. So there's definitely more points to gain from McLaren, but they just didn't execute it this week at all. As for, we've talked about Carlos having a very good consistent race. Actually, at one point, I think he was up 5 or 6 positions I can't remember where he qualified, but he was definitely one of the biggest gainers this week. And as for Charles, obviously he boxed on lap 1, like you said, and then was at the back of the grid. But Daniel Ricciardo, I'm not going to completely echo what you've said because I agree. There's no need to go for it again. Really, really disappointing. And we're over a third of the way through the season now. And it looks so promising. Lando came out of the practice session saying, we've got a brilliant car. We've got a decent car. This car and this track is a perfect combination. He was buzzing. And I thought, hold on a second. This is it. This is going to be the one where maybe Daniel gets a P5, Lando gets a P4, or maybe one of them ends up on the podium. I was really feeling it this weekend. And it just did not materialize, which was just such a shame.
Yeah, maybe with the different tyre compounds next week, it'll be different for the car, different for Daniel. Can only hold on hope at this stage. Big questions to be asked for Daniel still. We know that he's a very capable driver. We had a comment on our video last week. It was about McLaren's excellent work in the French Grand Prix. And I forget who posted it, so I apologize to them if they're listening to this. But it was a comment on that video that basically said they thought that Ricciardo would end up outscoring Lando by the end of the season. And struggles are clearly not over, but it still feels like he could really pick it up. I still have that hope. I still have that feeling about him because I know what he's capable of as a driver and seen it in the past. So, and it kind of saw a big uptick in performances when he was at Renault. There was that kind of point where something suddenly seemed to click, and he was, it was lucky he was going to get one podium, and he ended up getting 2, and Ocon got 1 as well. So we just don't know what's going to happen yet. I'm not going to write him off, but I am feeling that I've got to criticize him pretty heavily because I would do the same if it was any other driver in any other team.
And we only criticize him so heavily because we know his potential. Like you said, we've seen him at Red Bull. We've seen him. We're harsh because we love him. We've seen him at Renault. Like you said, he got better as the time went on, which is great. And we just need that same story to happen with McLaren. Jumping back on to what I said about Carlos, he started in P12, actually 1 position ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, and then finished in P6. So he gained 6 positions, whereas Ricciardo stayed exactly the same. And this is where McLaren have done a struggle this year because Ferrari made the best out of a pretty poor qualifying session. And not to forget that obviously Charles had that front wing incident and they finished 6th and 7th. And McLaren still failed to capitalise on that, not their second driver, but on Daniel's car, which is a massive shame.